Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment with me, Marina Hyde.
And me, Richard Osman. Hello, everybody. Hello, Marina. What are we talking about this week?
Cancellations. I see it's another difficult year for men in television.
Yes, Gino D'Acampo.
Gino D'Acampo. We'll also talk about the sort of ongoing Karla, Sofia Gascon, Oscars, Amelia Perez controversy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's sort of a rolling cancellation there. What else are we going to talk about?
Billie Eilish has a new fragrance out. We're going to talk about the history of celebrity fragrances.
We're doing a deep dive into celebrity fragrances,
yes,
which is one of my specialist areas.
There's a lot going on.
And it was the Super Bowl. We're recording this on a Monday morning, and it was the Super Bowl last night. And obviously, we'll be talking about various sort of entertainment-related angles to that.
Shall we start with Gino?
Okay, so we'll begin with Gino D'Acampo. Investigated by your own channel's news operation is never a good look, but we see it quite often.
Normally the BBC.
Yeah.
And ITN are thinking, come on, surely we can get one.
We must have a few. Look at our schedules.
Yeah.
Dozens of inappropriate remarks down the years.
Yes.
And he's clearly been spoken to more than once by productions he's worked on. It's always to sort of, people like runners who are having to come and tell him, what the next setup is. It is just so boringly, awfully familiar. And
Yes.
when you're one of those people who has to be on a crew and you're up at ridiculous times in the morning, you're working often for very low wages if you're in the really junior positions.
And also, by the way, you're just starting and you're thinking this might be it. This could be a great career for me and I'm not going to rock the boat and this is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a little bit of swearing in this episode, but it's only in the Gino quote mark. So if one of the things he says to you is, I'd like to turn you over and you against the kitchen counter, I mean, the person who reported that one said, people sort of tittered, but nobody confronts him. And it's sort of interesting that nobody confronts in that situation. And there's lots of different reasons. Where there's a sort of reason that, it's just Gino being Gino.
Yeah.
And there is very much a persona that he has been encouraged to play up to. So we'll come to that. There's another reason, which we know, it's the type of shows he's involved in. They're not very expensive. If you go and take him away and say that, that's going to derail you by an hour or two. And there's these constant, clearly, sort of value judgments of being made by people.
Yes. Is
How
this
bad
okay?
is it?
Perhaps this is okay. Perhaps should we just get on with today and see if it happens
I'm
again
afraid
tomorrow?
to say, I think that you can really feel that in so many of these accounts. I mean, there are other ones sort of, that are almost comical in their awfulness. There's one that he says, if you don't get me a cornetto, I'll f*** your girlfriend.
Yeah, so ITV have shelved some of the shows that he was involved with and are not doing more shows. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you could look at it on one level, and some of the papers have done, and certainly a lot of the commentators have done, and just said, oh my God, really, you can't say anything anymore, and this is a huge overreaction, and yada, yada, yada. This stuff does not happen. People do not lose their job just because they said a couple of things a couple of times.
Yeah.
Right? It's a pattern of behaviour. It's upset a number of people over a number of years. And we've said before on this show, if you are in trouble as a presenter, but actually your crew loves you and the people who work with you just go, do you know what? That's just what they do, and he's a really decent guy, then you don't get fired. There has to be a whole series of things that happen. It has to go on long enough and for it to be tiresome enough, which is the word we never use, right? What it is tiresome. What it is people are trying to do their job and endlessly coming up against this. I was talking to a friend of mine who worked in the 90s with a very big Saturday Night Star, and she was saying day after day after day, it was sexualized comments all day, every day, always being laughed in by the producers, always being laughed in by the crew. In those days, there's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do. There's nowhere to go because what are you going to say? Oh, he said some rude words to me and it upset me. There would be short shrift. And I think it's probably better that we live in a world where when enough people, and we've talked before, people who work in TV are pretty tough. I mean, they really are. These people are working long hours. There's very few hangers-on a TV set. Yeah. And if enough of them have come forward and just said, do you know what? I'm just tired of all of this. I'm tired. I'm trying to do my job, and I don't need sexualized comments every time I come in with a cup of coffee. At some point, if you're a channel, you have to go, okay, I've heard enough now. I am uncomfortable with having this person on my channel. I'm uncomfortable with paying this person an awful lot of money where there's other people I could be doing the same too.
Well, I think that's a bigger part of it in lots of ways. Don't forget that Gino D'Acampo provides, he starts as the chef or whatever on This Morning, but he slowly taken over bits of the schedule. But during that time, he will have become more and more expensive. And there is a certain point that you just think, we used to pay you this, now we pay you this, and this is definitely not acceptable at this price point. Some of the show, people are saying, they've been pulled from the schedules. All the shows have been pulled from the schedules. And I was thinking, can I have a little look at what some of these are? And I was looking at some of them. There was something, first of all, there's the existence of the channel ITVB, which many people may not even be aware of its existence. There was Fred and Gino on something called Mission Impossible, which is a show he did with Fred Sirieix. That same sort of thing, he comes up through one type of show and then suddenly they're presenting all the shows. This one followed Fred and Gino on an epic eco-friendly adventure across Austria and Croatia as they discovered the true cost of going green. I was like, oh, wait, they're not going to be able to show that again. Oh, no. Surely contextualise and explain. Don't pull down that beautiful statue. I mean, really, some of these things, I think, but we're also seeing the Greg Wallace effect, let's be quite honest, which is that other people are thinking, well, I've put up with this nonsense with people I've had to work with. Again, someone who started off as in quite a small role and then became bigger and bigger and bigger, and more and more and more expensive. And then people are just saying, oh, I don't have to be involved with it. Can we say a little bit, though, about the difficulty for certain, if you're not a master of intellect and nuance, and I'm not suggesting that Gino D'Acampo is or isn't, I think I am. If your persona is, you are an Italian cheeky chappy, and we're going to let you cook in an apron with no clothes on this morning because you said if they ever won an award, you'd do it. There is some sort of suggestion that your persona is supposed to be that.
Yes.
And that when you fail to understand the line, that's not just on you. I wonder how many times he was spoken to.
And also, of course, he did Celebrity Juice. And Celebrity Juice, if you want to stray close to that line, I mean, it literally walked to the other side of that line almost endlessly. It's one of those shows that I suspect will age very, very badly.
Yeah, definitely.
I suspect, because it had a certain take which was of its time, and that time probably no longer with us. But yeah, he was encouraged on that show to be that character as well. And also, by the way, probably lots of that is his character. You are allowed to do sexualised banter in your daily life.
Yes.
You are allowed to do it if your friends like it, if your family like it, if the people around you like it. You are allowed to do it. If whatever club you belong to, if you're at the golf club and you do that and everyone's laughing all the time, you must absolutely go ahead.
It's really great if you don't do it to people on sort of low to minimum wage who are just trying to get their start in the industry and are a lot younger than you.
Exactly. So he is saying, I don't recognise myself in this, which we've heard a lot of times before.
He doesn't recognise himself.
I don't recognise my behaviour.
But it's surely the exact behaviour, but just a little bit more. Yeah. I entirely recognise him in it, and I don't feel like he's a star for me. I don't really watch the shows he's in.
Well, he is a pretty big star. So he does Family Fortunes, which is a big show for ITV. He does the Fred Sirieix, Gordon Ramsay, and Gino D'Acampo, their Big Adventure, which is ITV's version of Top Gear, really.
Yes.
And did very good numbers for them. He's a much-loved presence on screen. Whatever you think about him, he has people like him, viewers like him. We are, of course, now in a world where that sort of doesn't matter anymore because viewers are declining, and you can replace people and nothing ever really happens, which the channels have started working out. But he's a significant presence on that channel. It's not like they've thrown someone under the bus who they don't work with or who does a series of shows that don't really work for them. Well, firstly, it shows that people are incredibly bored of having to work in those sorts of environments. And by the way, it doesn't necessarily mean they're offended. Right, because no one's particularly being offended by this. They are bored by it because it's not. They're the butt of the joke.
Yeah,
they're not
boring, annoying, and tiring.
Not in on the joke, exactly. And you can put up with that for so long, but 12 people complaining, I suspect, tells its own story. But also the world where talent is much more disposable now. Talents and channels which have been tied together, yoked together for so many years, that bond is completely breaking. Talent go off and do their own things and have their own brand extensions and make their own money. Channels have fewer and fewer bits of real estate and fewer new shows that they can give to talent anyway. So it feels like just one of those things for ITV. Maybe 5 years ago they wouldn't have done it, 10 years ago they wouldn't have done it, 20 years ago they certainly wouldn't have done it. But now there's nothing stopping them. Someone's complained about him. They sort of agree. They've asked around. People have gone, yeah, that is actually what the atmosphere is like. And they've gone, okay, we're done. And of course, Gino D'Acampo's origin story was he came out of prison and then set up an Italian catering company. But he went to prison. People know this, I think, but anyone who doesn't, it's one of the most extraordinary showbiz facts. He went to prison for burgling Paul Young's house. So Paul Young's house in North London, Gino D'Acampo befriended his au pair, steals Paul Young's guitars, platinum disc, video recorder, fax machine, jewellery, cash, all sorts of things, was caught because he dropped a cigarette butt at Paul Young's house and his DNA was on it, and went to prison for 2 years. And that seems to be slightly swept under the carpet when people talk about what a cheeky chappy he is.
Crikey. I think he knew that it was coming. Because there's an interesting interview he gave at the launch of I can't remember who he was talking to, and he was saying, this is just in October, by the way, I'm the most censored man on TV. He said, behind the scenes, people on my shows freak out because I don't know where to draw the line. I mean, really. Mm-hmm. And then he said, the ITV freak out when they give me a show, but they know that I mean well, and that whatever I say, it comes from a good place. I don't do anything I wouldn't do in everyday life. Yeah. And he says, thinking about how many people are being cancelled nowadays who came out of the spotlight for one reason or another, right or wrong, well, I'm still here and I have no intention of going anywhere. That was October.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think there is a sense, though, that all of these things are so sort of historical. Well, not historical, but they've just all been going on for so long that people have suddenly realised, belatedly, oh, hang on, there were quite a few people before me, but I've seen quite a few of them have been sent packing. Yeah. And now there's not much of a firewall between me and the forces of cancellation. And I think that someone like him probably thought, oh, it's coming. There is a level where you know.
The interesting thing for the future, of course, is channels won't be able to sack talent because talent won't need channels, exactly what we were just talking about. Actually, they'll work for whoever they want to. They work for themselves. They have their own brands. They have their own YouTube channels. So no one's going to fire these people. They're still going to have runners, and they're still going to have directors, and they're still going to have people working for them. But they'll be the owners of the company. They'll be the CEO of the company. They'll be the star of the company. They'll be on a platform that's not going to sack them. And actually, we live in the last days where a BBC or an ITV can actually fire you for this sort of behaviour. We won't be able to fire these people ever in future. I wonder who'll be the last one.
I don't think he'll be the last one, but we're near the last. It's the last days of those type of cancellations. Because if you look through lots of the comments, there's lots of people saying, I would not be offended by this and I don't care about this. It's not. They haven't. Many of those commenters haven't necessarily absorbed the power imbalance that we were talking about, which is it's very, very different if you're a runner. And if he's saying it to, I don't know, his co-presenter, then fine.
Yes.
But it's very, very different. The power imbalance there is a thing.
And also, by the way, they haven't understood that it doesn't matter if they wouldn't be offended by it. I mean, there's other things that they would be offended by that they would complain about. And this happens to be a thing that...
They're offended by this cancellation.
Yeah, exactly.
You've logged on about that.
And now I've got to hear about it. No, it's right. But, and I think it's the same with the Greg Wallace thing. If you're able to do that banter with the people above you and they don't mind, there's an assumption you can do it with the people below you and they won't mind either. And that's on you and that's also on the people above you.
If you haven't thought it through. There are people who are close to all sorts of lines and are funny, but it's all equal opportunities and they don't sort of punch down, as it were. Yeah. And there are lots and lots and lots of talented, creative, comic people in television like that who will never get cancelled for reasons like this because they understand. But I just feel like he's completely failed to understand. And also he's become expensive and they've probably thought, we can just create another person like you. We don't have to worry.
The basic rule is this, I think. If it's someone's job to bring you a cup of coffee, they do not want to hear about your cock.
Wow.
Simple.
Well, put it on page 1 of Osmond's Rules to Telly because... But you know what? It served you very well. Yeah. And I think that should probably be rule 1. I should obviously say that Gino has denied the allegations and said that he's never been made aware of any of the matters previously. I'm a father, husband, and have worked with well over 1,500 people on around 80 productions in my career, which I've been so proud of. I take such matters extremely seriously, and the suggestion that he's ever acted in an improper way is deeply upsetting.
He has not denied burgling Paul Young's house, though.
No.
That he accepts. Now, from Gino D'Acampo to a very different sort of cancellation for a very different reason. This one in Hollywood, this one about the film Emilia Perez, and this one, the cancellation of the actress Karla Sofia Gascon.
Who is the star of Emilia Perez, which is a sort of strange, semi-fantasy, transgender musical. She plays a Mexican drug lord who transitions, and as we've discussed before, somebody mined all the old tweets and found that racist, like disparaging towards Jews, Muslims, lesbians, Black and Asian people, George Floyd, perhaps most significantly towards the 2021 Oscar ceremony. This was acquired by Netflix. It's basically a French film that seems to have been shot somewhere just outside Paris, but is set in Mexico and doesn't really have any Mexican crew or anything like that.
But it was 100% going to win the Oscar. I mean, it was so far ahead in the Oscar race. In the betting, Emilia Perez was far and away the favourite.
It's not now because they've...
now it's definitely not winning the Oscar.
Yes, it's not now. Liberal Hollywood thought that they had to like... This is the thing that they should like because it has a transgender person in it. I ended up writing about it last week, and I said it was a 5-star controversy for a 3-star film, which I feel is...
I think it's a 4-star film.
Okay.
But and a 4-star controversy. So
but they're
it's
now
eight stars from both of us.
It's interesting. They're now in this sort of ridiculous situation where, because we know how much Netflix wants awards, as we've talked about it before, when they thought they were in with a shout for Roma, they literally bought an entire marketing agency that does just the awards. So let me tell you, when Netflix co-chair Ted Sarandos finds out who didn't go through the old tweets, because that really should be day one. And one of the interesting things that people are talking about now is, do you actually start tweet mining at the casting stage process? Yeah. People will know, but I'm stunned that Netflix, who care so much about this, there'll be so many people working on this campaign, didn't go back and sort of delete all the tweets because...
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Amelia Perez, like Baby Reindeer, funnily enough, slightly came out of left field in terms of being a huge hit. You know, it's not one of those ones where right at the beginning Netflix were involved, were all over casting and all that stuff. This thing came into them and everyone's excited about it.
They acquired it after it was a hit at Cannes.
Exactly. They acquired it. So the due diligence perhaps wasn't done in a way that it might have been with a show that was wholly owned or had a lot of money behind it.
Day one after you've acquired it, you should have done it. It's just sloppiness.
For everyone in every film?
Yeah.
Like, to go through every tweet of ever, that's a job I wouldn't wish on anyone.
Oh, I think in a film like that is going to be eye-catching for all kinds of reasons. Why didn't? I mean, everybody's now said, oh, it's another campaign that's done it. It's a form of sabotage. I don't actually think it is, and people inside the business don't think it is. They think it's just an enterprising journalist who started to go through all these things themselves. But it's interesting. So now everyone's watching all the politics, and they had one of these, I think it's something like the American Film Institute or whatever, had a big, one of their sort of pre-award season lunches anyway last week. And there was an Amelia Perez table, which had Selena Gomez, Zoe Saldana and various people from that film. Ted did not sit on that table.
Did he not?
He sat with the TV lot from Nobody Wants This. But, so people sort of notice things like that. I have to say in the case of this one, that is the lesson that people will take out of it, which is that you have to nail down everything on all of these things. There are all sorts of other controversies now, and people are saying, oh, they should rescind the nomination. And there are people who think that she should never have been nominated in the women's category. By the way, can I just, as a little sidebar, I think it's ridiculous that... Don't forget, it's really stupid that the acting category is the only category that is divided. Okay, we don't have best woman director, best male director, and this is purely because the acting branch of the Academy wants to maximise awards and attention.
As many actors as possible.
They're actors, right? And that's fine. We go to see the movies for actors. In my view, they should have 10 best performances. Like we have 10 best pictures now, and it should be like that. However, and that would show up much more clearly that women do not get nominated in the directing category. They don't get nominated in all sorts of things. This is a way of making it so that people don't even look at it and say, oh, look, there's lots of women have turned up and won. So I think that we're not talking about Olympic sport here. There is no advantage in the female category. I would say to you that it's much more important that we have directors, women represented in all of those categories, the sound engineers, all the other many categories. None of these categories are divided at the Oscars. And this is purely an attention thing for performance that the actors branch loves.
That sounded like something you've wanted to say for years.
No, I just find it sort of funny that people, because it is sort of, we talk about actor and actress, and you say, we don't even want to use those terms anymore. I do find it hilarious that, but what it does is it masks the lack of women in all the other categories, because you end up seeing people in frocks getting awards, and you've seen lots of pictures. But if you actually look, we'll go and have a look how many women actually win awards.
We'll go.
We won't go.
We're going to go.
We're not going to.
We're going to the Oscars.
God, do you really? No, I don't think.
Well, Gary Lineker's paying for us to go to the Oscars.
But we'll see how many women won in all the categories if you strip out the acting category, which is a sort of thing of its own, and then you'll talk about what Hollywood needs to do in all types of representation, but particularly in terms of how many women have ever been nominated in the directing category.
The interesting sidebar to this whole Karla Sofia Gascon thing is, obviously, Netflix are now not going to get the Best Picture Oscar for this. She's not going to get the Best Actress. But everything is being thrown behind Zoe Saldana still getting Best Supporting Actress.
Oh, they've tried to firewall it. They've all
she's been very good and very impressive and talked about it. And I think she's going to manage it. I think they will win that one. I think she's, as you say, she's very successfully firewalled herself from this whole thing. And I think Netflix have thrown every single thing they've got into going, well, listen, let's get that one. Because that's a nice Oscar to get.
Oh, it's all so ridiculous. Honestly, I can't say. I find it very difficult to take a huge amount of it seriously. But we shall see at the end how many women.
You know, this is entertainment.
Yeah, no, I know, but you have to laugh.
Oh, the Oscars are ridiculous.
You have to laugh. It's ridiculous,
yeah,
right?
Ridiculous.
It's hard. It's hard to take any of this in a sort of mega serious way. You have to sort of laugh. In general, you have to realise that these are some of the most terrible people in the world, spending vast amounts of money to win prizes that don't even make much difference to the bottom line because they really care about that level of self-regard. And let's not take all of it too seriously.
What are we talking about now, Marina?
Well, I hope this section of the show is coming to everyone in smello-vision or smello-audio. Because we're talking...
Yeah, smello-audio.
Smello-audio. Because we're going to talk about celebrity fragrance in the parlance of what it is. Billie Eilish has launched a new fragrance, which is called Your Turn. It's actually the 4th scent she's brought out. And if you're thinking, that's not actually that Billie Eilish, is it? It doesn't feel like her vibe. Well... First of all, the people who you always make these fragrances in partnership with someone, and they said, what's really successful is her complete love of fragrance. Age 17, she had 120 bottles of fragrance, which is a lot.
That's a party.
And he's got top notes of peel, cardamom, fresh ginger, heart notes of night blooming jasmines and coconut water, and it dries down to captive musks, upcycled silver amber and Australian sandalwood.
Captive musk sounds like a headline we want to hear in about 5 years' time.
5 days' time, if possible. I'm very suggestible, by the way. If you say any of those things, like giving me a glass of wine, if you tell me what it tastes of, I can taste every single thing you're possibly saying. If you ask me to tell you what it tastes of,
can't tell you.
Wine?
By the way, this is an absolute sidebar. I promise we'll get back to Billie Eilish. But in LA, they're drinking salty wine now. They were like, we got this wine. So it's a salty wine. And we're like, that must be something different here. And so we had something think, this is really salty. And apparently people are drinking salty wine in LA. Anyway, so it'll be coming to us soon.
Endless search for the new. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of celebrity fragrances because it is fun and interesting.
And lucrative.
Well, that is the main thing. It's hard to know which the first one was. In some ways, the first Givenchy created one for Audrey Hepburn. They'd come together when he was doing the costumes for Sabrina, and that was in 1956. And he made her a set because he then sort of fell in love with her.
Is Givenchy a guy?
Absolutely, Hubert Givenchy, and loved her. Hubert Givenchy, and loved her so much and thought she was amazing, and created a scent just for her, and then said, actually, it's quite good and I'd quite like to market it. And she said, je vous l'interdis, which means I forbid you. But then in a couple of years, he managed to get it out, and it's called l'interdit, the forbidden.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. And she did become its face.
Yeah.
And then I think in 81, Sophia Loren had one, which was called Sophia. But
clever. Really
the patient zero, as it were, of celebrity fragrances was Elizabeth Taylor, who in 87 launches Passion, and she did it with Elizabeth Arden, who's obviously a sort of big cosmetics and...
Are all these people real? Like Elizabeth Arden?
Yeah,
and
Elizabeth Arden, yes.
I tell you who's real, Max Factor. That's what I didn't know. Max Factor is a guy, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, just like a bloke.
Some of the stories are really quite sort of fascinating, but all those people.
Is Lonthoric a person?
Lonthoric, you don't hear that anymore.
Don't you?
That's really old-fashioned. Yeah. That's old school. I don't know, presumably, yes.
Yeah. Steve Brute.
Yeah. Anyway, in 1991... what Elizabeth Taylor brings out is White Diamonds. Now, that was absolutely mega. The adverts, people, if you're my age, you'll remember the advert. And then there are about 18 more she brought out over her life.
And that was the first one that went absolutely mega.
White Diamonds goes absolutely mega. It is the trailblazer.
Is it White Diamonds or White Diamond?
White Diamonds.
It is, okay.
Oh, you think she's only got one?
Yeah.
No. She's very much about, as we know, the multiple jewels. When she died, White Diamonds alone was making her $61 million a year. It made... The range made so much more than her entire acting career. I mean, beyond, by multiples, all right?
Which is a real harbinger of things to come.
Yes, and which is why we see a lot. Anyway, the price point is always interesting. In today's money, 100 millilitres of Chanel No. 5 is £145, a sort of full price. 100 millilitres of a celebrity scent might be between £20 to £25. Now, if they have a younger audience, it might go down to sort of 18 or whatever, or 16. But you're in a very different price point. It's because people feel like it's almost like a unit of a star. It's a way to identify with a star in the same way that people can't afford to buy clothes from Chanel because they're so great. Like very few people can afford to buy clothes from Chanel, but lots of people might think, I want to get the scent because then I'm sort of identified with the brand.
Justin Bieber, his scent was called Someday.
Yeah.
That was launched with his quote on that was launched with the strapline, "This is what Justin likes girls to smell like."
Well, that was very, very clear. And because he's going for such a young market, they sort of need to say that, whereas someone like Billie Eilish is going to be more sophisticated. And also, we all do have these sort of parasocial relationships with these stars in some ways. It's a sort of way of just being part of their essence, buying into their brand. About 20 years ago, maybe a bit less, 15 years ago, the New York Times for a short period of time did actually have a perfume critic.
Oh, really?
Hilarious job. It was a guy called Chandler Burr, and he wrote a book, which is quite interesting. It's quite dated now, but about a year in the development of two scents, one which I think was for Hermes and one which was Sarah Jessica Parker's one, which when it came out, by the way, everyone was like, oh yeah, that's what I think Harry Bradshaw would smell like. So that was one of the ones where it's the sort of essence of the persona was and has sold brilliantly, that one. But he said it's the single best tool for monetizing celebrity that has ever been created in the history of the world.
Really?
First of all, just the name on the bottle, that removes countless millions of ad spend, so you don't need to do that.
Yep.
Already, scent is some of the biggest profit margins in the beauty industry. So you might say, if you're making sort of high-end scent, maybe it costs 25% of what retail value is. Some of these celebrity scents, which are cheaper, can go right down to sort of 3%, 5% of the retail value. And if one of them is successful, they have something called flanker fragrances. So you bring out something and then it's like, oh, the night's version of that, the summer version of that. So they slightly, fiddle around with the formula, but it's the same basic thing. And then they all sell very well. It's like sort of diffusion lines of things.
It's like cherry Coke and vanilla Coke.
Yeah, it's like, exactly. After the Elizabeth Taylor sort of boom bit, the next and most significant period is the noughties. The celebrity culture has sort of exploded, and we're seeing different kinds of celebrities, the ones we want. It comes in at a lower price point, and you're aiming it at teens. So someone like Paris Hilton had a bunch.
Paris Hilton had. I've done. Listen, it won't surprise you to know I've done a list of the top 5 people with the most scents ever, and she's number 5 with 28. So
yeah, she has a lot, and she still sells them. Now there's 2 big ones in that decade. One is Britney Spears. She does a deal with Elizabeth Arden, with Revlon.
She's still around, is she?
She's, yeah. Elizabeth? Oh, she does live with the company.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
And they have Curious by Britney Spears, which represents the young woman that pushes boundaries and revels in adventure. And that shifted 100 million units in the first year alone. You can't believe it, how much money it made. Now, over the years, that has, without any question, her many, she then was followed by Fantasy.
Yes, that's a big one.
By In Control, even when her life at that point, she was clearly not in control of her own life. This is really close to the breakdown, all those sorts of things. Nonetheless, even then and ever since, the perfume lines have sold brilliantly for Britney Spears. And when that documentary came out, what it's called, Framing Britney or whatever it was called, there were even bigger boosts, but it has sold steadily and well all the time. Now, this was quite a big plot line in the whole conservatorship thing, because she kept being, I don't know, her wealth kept being
do you know what? Briefly, I thought you meant it was a storyline in the Conservative leadership election, but no, the conservatorship.
That would have made that a bit more interesting.
Yes.
But yeah.
Robert Jenrick's fragrance did not sell well.
Yeah, generic. Yeah. Generique. By Robert Jenrick.
By Lontharic.
By Lontharic. So yes, they thought she's definitely grossed sort of more than upwards of 2 billion, I would have thought. And so people were saying, well, where is that money? But she's still very big. She's recently gone over to Give Back Beauty, and Revlon, Elizabeth Arden, they're suing her because
it's Give Back Beauty. Like,
it's a different brand. Lots of the executives went from one to the other, and she's moved all of her fragrances over there. She still makes a huge amount of money for this. The other big one is J-Lo. Now, Glow by J-Lo sort of changes everything.
Biggest of all, right?
Yeah. In the first year's sales was something like $300 million. It was crazy. She launches it. This is a bit of a period piece. Launched in Trump Tower.
Really?
Party attended by Apprentice host Donald Trump.
Whatever happened to him?
Trump has got absolutely loads of them. And I can't, you can go on President Trump's official fragrances, they're called.
Yeah, I think one of them is called Donald Trump. One of them is called Empire. And one of them is called Success.
Yeah, my favourite one.
They sound like Martin Amis novels.
Yeah. I'm really upset that I didn't buy you this for Christmas. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't out then because it is called Fight, Fight, Fight.
Oh, I love that.
And it's the thing it's got the picture of just after, with him raising his fist just after the assassination attempt in which a bit of the lectern may or may not have hit his ear. Don't write in.
And it's absolutely overwhelmed.
The bullet, whatever, whichever plot line you believe in anyway.
And it's absolutely overwhelmed by Musk.
Yeah. I love that. Actually, its official description is, for patriots who never back down, like President Trump, this scent is your rallying cry in a bottle. Featuring Trump's iconic image and raised fist, this limited edition cologne embodies strength, power and victory. How did I not buy it for you for Christmas?
That sounds amazing. And a lovely sort of touch of bergamot.
Yeah, always. There's always.
Yeah.
But as you say, the Musk note's interesting. I want... Meghan, I keep thinking, we're going to do her show when it comes out, which is called With Love Meghan, which absolutely sounds like the name of a celebrity fragrance. And I bet you she does one.
Oh, yes.
I bet you Meghan will do one. That will be the next thing.
Maybe there'll be a Meghan and a Harry one.
Michael Jackson had great friend of Elizabeth Taylor, of course. He had, in 1993, he had one called Mystique to Michael Jackson. Why does it have to be in French? It's the conventions, like the diplomatic language, like it has to be. And Legende to Michael Jackson. Legende. That was for me.
And there's some Neil Gaiman has got
shut the front door,
which is called Lemon Scented Sticky Bat. I tell you who's got a lot.
Has Neil Gaiman got one?
Yeah.
Did he have one? That's being remained in right now.
Yeah. Well, and funny you should say, did he have one? Because Puff Daddy has also...
he's got a load.
Because P. Diddy's got a load. His first one is called Unforgivable. Yeah, okay. And then later on, I Am King.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I Am King, I Am King of the Night, and Unforgivable Night.
Yeah, those are the flankers.
I mean, come on, man.
That's in the Unforgivable Night is... Yeah, again, they'll just be remade. Or they'll just put somebody else's face on the bottle maybe and see if they can't repurpose.
But you can tell the money people can make. Prince once did a perfume. He signed up with a perfume company and then decided in Prince's wisdom not to promote it in any way whatsoever and had to pay them back $4 million. So you think, if Prince is getting $4 million to do a perfume, there is a lot of money in this world. But
that's just your sign-on thing. That's about the price. You get in the under 10 millions to sign on, and then you get a percentage of sales between 5 and 10%. So they make huge amounts of money, the ones that do well. So everyone feels like there's low risk here.
Yeah.
The weirdest one ever, which I might finish on because I think this one is genuinely the weirdest. In 2009, there was this company called My DNA, which used they had My DNA fragrance, and they used DNA samples from hair, and they did Michael Jackson's hair. In order to do this, they partnered with a guy called John Resnikoff, who claims to own the largest authenticated hair collection of famous people in the world.
No way is that the largest.
Yeah. Don't arrest him. Go into business with him. Yeah.
He's got the largest authenticated hair collection.
Yeah. I mean, I would be backing away quite quickly at this point.
I would be writing a police procedural.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where we find out celebrities who committed crimes.
I'm sure he's got a great story for how he got all the hair. Anyway, they had supposedly based on the DNA of Obama, Marilyn Monroe, Joan Crawford, Michael Jackson, Einstein.
I mean...
We had a lot of hair.
Firstly, does DNA smell?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure
but they wanted it to be... They wanted to say, this was this thing that I talked about at the start, where you are saying, are you buying what you think they might smell like, or are you buying some sort of ineffable essence of them? And this was very much at the end of ineffable essence.
It doesn't have their DNA in it.
Oh, yeah. Look, I've seen Jurassic Park. I mean, they're just... People will buy anything. People bought Towie B. Ream.
Yes.
So, yeah, if you're telling me I'm buying Einstein's DNA, I mean, I'm not actually going to buy it. I would, as an ironist, buy it for you again.
Yes, I'd love that.
You're going to have 120 bottles of ironic fragrance by the end of
to go with my hair collection.
Yeah,
people bought Kermit's Amphibia and Miss Piggy's Moi.
Well, I mean, I like that. I wonder what they smell like. I'd like all of these.
But yeah, the top 3 best-selling ever, Fantasy by Britney. Number 3. Number 2, Heat, Beyonce.
Yeah.
And number 1, the best-selling fragrance of all time, the one that made the most money, is J.Lo's Glow. All of those have made into the billions in sales.
And none of them could have done it without Elizabeth Taylor going first, I have to say.
As so often.
Yeah. Okay, now, the Super Bowl, I think as we said before on the podcast, this is America's biggest sporting event, and everyone always talks about what happens at half-time and what adverts they showed, which, doesn't happen in the rest of the world's version of football, the World Cup final, but it's their
does in
culture
America.
and I respect it.
Well,
It's how they do it.
It's the biggest TV show in the world, pretty much. It's the biggest TV show in the English-speaking world.
And we talk about what happens in the ad breaks.
The Super Bowl, and the ad breaks are essentially their version of the John Lewis Christmas ad. Like, people are obsessed. It's the one time of the year where people really, really, really want to watch adverts, and everyone launches their big new ads. You kind of work out who's famous or not that year. You kind of work out who's got money or not that year. Like in the 60s, it was all tobacco, and a few years ago, it was all crypto. So it does give you an interesting image of where America is at any given time. But what did we learn this year, do we think?
Well, to me, it's interesting, like what entertainment properties, specifically movies, get pushed in the ads and what they get. And we'll talk about the halftime show in a minute. So the ads that they had ads for Megan 2, which is the Blumhouse Universal, the horror one.
Not Meghan,
not
Meghan.
That. Not with Love Meghan,
Yes.
Meghan Markle's show, which we're going to talk about when that happens. Thunderbolt Asterisk, as I have to say it in the title, which is the Marvel one. That's coming up soon.
By the way, this is super significant because it costs, I think this year, $8 million for 30 seconds. So this is, if you're spending money on this, these are your absolute bankers. These are the ones the studios think are absolutely going to go. $8 million for 30 seconds.
Or that they need to go. They had a lot longer than 30 seconds. I don't know what they had. Maybe it was 2.5 minutes. They had a lot for Thunderbolt.
Which is, that's $40 million.
Jurassic World Rebirth, I think that'll be big, as I say. That was the thing. Something called Novocaine, which is a kind of comic superhero thing.
Oh, I saw an advert for it, and it had a very good tagline.
Yeah.
It was like the guy was called Nick Kane.
Yeah, he can't feel pain.
He can't feel pain. Yeah, Novocaine, Nick Payne, he can't feel something like that.
There were spots and teasers for things like How to Train Your Dragon, which when I said my list of movies that I thought would be big, Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah.
The Smurfs, which I didn't even include in my movies, which I thought they're pushing that. To save their world, they have to come to ours. That old chestnut.
The Smurfs in trouble.
Yeah, the Smurfs
world is in trouble.
And once again, to save someone else's world, that someone else has to come to ours.
Is Father Abraham okay?
It looked quite tiring. That the thing I think was a real miss.
That's not the tagline, surely.
It looks quite tiring. Be prepared to be tired.
Yeah.
The thing I thought was a real miss, and I knew they'd do it because I thought the sporting crossover is too big, is the F1 movie. Bear in mind, we've seen none of this, which is
the F1 movie.
The F1 movie starring Brad Pitt. I'm starting to get a bit worried about that because I really think that has the potential, if they do it right, to be a sort of a surprise hit. They've filmed it alongside all the F1 seasons. They filmed it on the track. It's going to feel very sort of authentic. Now, we haven't really seen any of it at all. This is Warner's, by the way, and they had a chance to show the world this thing at a sporting event. But this was no dialogue. It was just montage. So I could see like Javier Bardem shouting, but you couldn't hear it because there was some music. They had Brad Pitt sort of getting pushed passionately against the wall by a woman. But
Pit stop.
It was pit
That's
stop.
what they should call it.
They should
F1
call it.
pit stop.
Yeah. It was a bad trailer. I don't know. If you're going to pay all that money, I cannot believe they couldn't do something to make that sound more exciting. You saw a bit of fire, a bit of crash, but otherwise, it's stuff I can see anyway. I would honestly, they would probably have been better showing a bit of Drive to Survive.
That's the weird thing about when movies advertise in the Super Bowl, because brands are paying an absolute fortune, and they throw their sort of greatest new adverts and their greatest new ideas. The first one to really, really go mega was the Apple 1984 ad, the Ridley Scott ad. And it's the only time it's ever been shown was in that Super Bowl. The Budweiser What's Up, that was Super Bowl. Budweiser always used to win the best advert. So an awful lot of creativity sent into this. But the TV shows and films which advertise tend to just show trailers, which you can see anywhere. And you just think, well, you can be shown the trailers 3 weeks ago and just do something incredible here. Because some of the big adverts this year are actually using film IP. So the biggest advert, the one people are most talking about, there's a remake of When Harry Met Sally. Yeah. Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan are both in that same diner, both recreating that scene.
They're advertising mayonnaise.
Advertising Hellmann's mayonnaise, exactly. And instead of Rob Reiner's mother at the end saying, I'll have what she's having, it is, of course, friend of the podcast, Sydney Sweeney. And the advert is sort of, you kept thinking something really funny is going to happen. It doesn't, but it's nice to see the two of them where they are. And Sydney Sweeney is a good get for them. And Then, there was a big Groundhog Day one a few years ago. There was a Twins one last year with DeVito and Schwarzenegger. So these brands are using films all the time.
Yeah.
But films are not going the other way around and using brands to promote new movies. They just show trailers and no one's particularly interested. There's never been a movie trailer in the top 10 most favourite Super Bowl adverts ever, because people are throwing so much. There's a great David Beckham one this year with Matt Damon. Who else has got one? Glenn Powell. He does the Ram Dodge advert, which is very, very good. So that they've got these incredible adverts, the Dunkin' Donuts ones now, which are great. It's Ben Affleck really leaning into an amazing personality and character, and they've got Jeremy Strong, Kendall from Succession, who very famously takes himself incredibly seriously, and he's sort of dunked in a big jar of molasses, not taking himself seriously. So there's lots of fun in the adverts. 8 seconds
in my life of not taking myself seriously. So make sure I'm doing it in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, make sure you're paying me $3 million.
And make sure, that everyone sees it, and then I never have to do it again until the 2040s.
Yeah, he does it very well. God bless him. But yeah, it seems to me like a slight waste of movies' time to just show a trailer when you could be doing something really spectacular with your stars, with other, but
I agree. I do think it's good for recognition, but I'm surprised that some of those really wasted it. Can we talk about the halftime show, which was Kendrick Lamar?
Yes.
It was short, quite impactful, not necessarily in a great way. I don't think it was adored. He did... Obviously, the whole story of the beef with him and Drake, where they just over a few days they just released endless diss tracks.
Yeah, and Kendrick sort of won like 15-0.
Yeah. Well, the last one, Not Like Us, basically accused Drake of being a paedophile, having sex with underage girls. The cover of that single when it came out was a picture of Drake's actual house with the tags on it showing that sex offenders live there. Drake denies all of this. Yeah. And in fact, they're both on the same record label, Universal, and Drake is suing Universal for not giving him sort of pastoral care and not having a duty of care to him and allowing this to happen.
And also not like this. Imagine someone releases a diss track about you and it's got all that stuff, and then it becomes the biggest song in the whole world for a whole year.
Not Like Us. Yeah, not last summer. There was some question about whether the NFL would allow this. I mean, it is a family show to be performed, but he did do it. And he didn't personally sing the word paedophile, but, the crowd stepped up to fill in that blank for him. I would say, as I say, it didn't go down that well, this halftime show. And it's quite interesting. Obviously, Trump was at the Super Bowl. He's the first sitting president, I think, to have gone to the Super Bowl. Jay-Z's Rock Nation has been in charge of that halftime slot since 2019, and he basically decides who goes on and who doesn't. He's partnered with the NFL there. My feeling is that will be another partnership blown away by the winds of Trump quite soon. I don't know how long it's got left to run on it, but they used to say end racism in the end zone. Now it said
doesn't. Yeah.
Now it doesn't. There are a lot of people saying make the halftime show great again. Why can't someone just stand there in a nice dress and sing to us?
Yeah. Why can't we have Garth Brooks?
Yeah. Taylor Swift was sort of booed
by
some,
Philadelphia Eagles fans, though. I think.
I agree. She was saying what's going on, but. I have to say that I think that there was a sort of sense that you've been seeing in lots of different places, like, things are changing, and remember how much someone like the NFL just cares about money, and if they feel that it's better, I don't think that partnership with Jay-Z, for instance, will go on.
Everything's going MAGA for the next couple of years. Yeah. That is for sure. Being out in America, you could just sense everything is doing that, but the pendulum swings back always. If the further the pendulum goes in this direction, the further it swings back. But you could tell everything is now just thinking, maybe we should be a bit more in middle America for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, whatever the most money is,
exactly.
Whatever the most money is,
that's what the NFL will do.
Yes, without any question. So there we go. The Eagles thrashed the Chiefs, but that's the last thing that anyone wants to hear about the Super Bowl. Yeah. The result.
Recommendations. Listen, The American Traitors. If you've watched one episode of The American Traitors and gone, I can't do this. There's all these Americans. They all know each other, and they're all sort of, they're so noisy, and I can't deal with it. Please go back in. I think it's one of the great series of The Traitors.
I love it.
It's filled with people who know how to play the game, who really, really, really play it well. There's some great characters in there. There's some amazing twists and turns. It's been dropped once a week now, so the first 7 have come out, so we have to wait, unfortunately, till Thursday for the next one. But it is really, really, really great, and just great game players who really know what they're doing and who really respect each other's game as well. I've absolutely loved it.
I also utterly love it. I want to recommend High Potential on Disney+. I'm trying to get my family to watch the show for about 2 weeks. It's got Caitlin Olsen in it, who I absolutely love from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. She plays the daughter in Hacks, Jean Smart's daughter. It's really good, really well made, story of the week, police procedural.
Oh,
she's great. You'd love it.
Oh, amazing.
And everyone was complaining about being forced to watch this by me. Yeah, well, we've watched all available episodes now, and it's really, it's so well done. It's made for Disney. I like loads of their shows, the way they do it.
Is it a comedy drama?
Yes, it's a comedy. It's a comedy drama, but it's just very nicely done. You'll really like it.
Oh, fantastic!
It's right up your street, and it's one of those sort of. It feels like it could have been on a network in the old days. Just very, very well made, and the stories are good. And she's a wonderful character. She's a very, very, very clever person who can't hold her life together, and is cleaning for the police when she's enlisted to help them with their investigations as a sort of consultant, and she's funny and brilliant.
Amazing. Shall we see each other for the question and answers edition on Thursday?
Please, let's.
We also have bonus episode this week is all about shows that were cancelled after one episode.
For a variety of sensational
of
reasons, yes.
Those bonus episodes are available to members. If you want to become a member, you go to
therestisentertainment.com, where you can sign up and you get ad-free bonus episodes, and you can chat as well.
And we thank you so much to everyone who is signing up. There's a lovely, lovely community there now, and some really, really good episodes as well. But we'll also be back on Thursday for a question and answers edition. So hopefully we'll see you then.
See you then.